Welcome back to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. This is either going to be my last episode or second to last episode, so I wanted to be kind of a reflection on this last year and, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I wanted to get Clayton Veldkamp in front of the camera this time instead of just behind the camera. Intermixed with this video, you're going to see Loki going back and forth because he just craves attention. So without further ado, hello, Clayton. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. So, how do you feel about being the Grand Poobah this year?
Being the Grand High Priest was something that I never really aspired to when I joined Royal Arch Masonry. However, I thought I could offer a lot to the craft, being in the Grand Chapter line, and that finally, after years in the Grand Chapter line, I'm now Grand High Priest and have been for a while, and I've enjoyed my time.
Okay, so from running a lodge to running the entire state, what's the level change in that?
The change is that in a lodge you have different people that offer different things. You've got great ritualists, you've got great cooks that cook the dinner beforehand, you've got really great people that volunteer for everything, and you've got some people that don't volunteer for anything. You've got great ritualists, you've got poor ritualists, and things like that, and that's just all contained in a lodge. Well, now if you expand that, you have to go, as the Grand High Priest of the Royal Archmasons, you have to go from chapter to chapter. So now, instead of a person that isn't very good at ritual, now you have a whole chapter that's not very good at ritual. Or you have a whole chapter that does everything all the time, and then you've got another chapter that really doesn't do that much. So instead of just the individual person on an individual chapter level, you've got an entire chapter on that level as far as the state goes.
What lessons did you learn? What are the big takeaways?
The lessons that I learned were both from myself and from past grands. From Bob Cooper, I learned to pick my battles. And some things were just a non-starter, and I wasn't even going to worry about that. One of those things was the capitular year for all Royal Arch Masons goes from the 1st of May to the 30th of February. Okay. And then the Grand High Priest year, the Grand Chapter year, goes from the 3rd weekend in August to the 3rd weekend in August. Our financial year goes from the 1st of June to the 31st of May. And I'm like, why don't we change that? Because the Grand High Priest has to put in a budget. Well, most of his budget goes to the financial year, but then the rest of his budget goes to the next Grand High Priest financial year. So I'm like, I tell you what, why don't we change it from the 1st of September to the 31st of August? There you go. As long as you're picking arbitrary dates, to have our financial year. That way, when the Grand High Priest is installed, he can say, this is what we're going to do for the year, and then it would just, oh my gosh, you would have thought that I asked, oh my gosh, the amount of pushback I got from that right away, I'm like, okay, never mind. We'll just keep it the same way. I just thought it would be common sense. I didn't know if it was going to be that hard to change, but apparently it was, and so I just let that alone. Another one from Larry Insko actually was two things. Number one, he said act and don't react. And I had to think about that for a while. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I mean, to him, it was just natural. But for me, it was like, okay, that makes sense now. I mean, after I thought about it for a while. And then the other one was just breathe. And that was, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, just breathe. But believe it or not, if you're having an issue with some chapter or some individuals or whatever, you just go to the side. And is this really a big deal? Are you really going to push this? Where are they coming from? That's the biggest thing, is you need to listen. And where are they coming from? What's their point of view? Whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, that's the issue, is just to understand where they're coming from with that. And this goes back to just me. And for the last several years, is if you want something done right, or you want something done the way you want it done, you might as well just do it yourself. Because otherwise, if you rely on somebody else to do it and you say, hey, do this, and you don't give them amplifying instructions, then they're going to do it the way that they think it should be done. And you're like, well, that's common sense. So now you just need to explain to them, okay, I need you to do it this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. And then they look at you like, well, why don't you just do it? And that has happened years. I mean, the last 20 years, give or take. And so now if there's something specific that needs to be done or specific, I just take care of it. But of course I do things that don't need specific ways to be done, then I can task other people to do that and just delegate that. So those are the things that I learned mostly, is to listen.
If you were talking to next year's high priest, like walking in to the position, should they have a goal, or should they just say, okay, I'm going to focus on making the chapters, except just be available for the chapters and help them?
Yes, they should have a goal. Not a goal, but they should have several goals. They can set the bar this high, but don't expect everyone to reach there. So if you want this, ask for this, and then give everybody. One of the things I say is I'm a perfectionist, but we all know that there's nothing can be perfect except God. And so I strive to be the best I can. And if we were taking a test, I know I'm probably not going to get 100. You just can't. And so if I shoot for 100, but I get 96, 97 on the test, I still did pretty good. But if you shoot for just good enough, you shoot for a C, then obviously you're going to fall short of that.
And
so
it's every place in your life.
It's just every place in your life, whatever you do with that. Going back to the goals, I had an old Master Chief in the Navy tell me, a plan is just something to deviate from. So you have to have a plan. And you can say, well, I want to grow the chapters, and I want to help the chapters, and I want to better Royal Arch Masonry. Okay, how are you going to do that? It's like a lot of these politicians I get these pamphlets for right before election time. Oh, I'm going to support veterans. I'm going to aid in the law, and I'm going to do this. Okay, well, that's great, but how are you going to do that? That's the other thing. I'm going to promote membership by doing A, B, and C. I'm going to help the chapters by doing A, B, and C. That's the most important part of having a goal, or multiple goals.
What are you most proud of accomplishing this year?
Pride really doesn't have any place in Masonry. It's more about the things that I accomplished, and I think I just tried to make people more aware. Everything that I did was transparent. Everything that I did, I explained. I wrote the secretaries directly and let them know what was going on. I didn't bug them, so they had to read all this at their communication, but I wrote to them maybe every other month saying, hey, these are the things I'd like you to read this to your companions, or don't read this to your companions, but at least, the secretary, the treasurer, and the high priest know about this. I communicated with them. I visited a lot of chapters. Throughout my time in the Grand Line, I visited all 37 chapters in the state of Michigan. I rewrote many of the things on the website. The Grand High Priest vision, the statement for that year, what is Royal Arch Masonry, the mission statement, the vision statement, a lot of things, and most of it was just updating. I don't think it has been updated in a long time. It's the last time it was updated.
Since Hiram Abiff?
Yes, since Hiram Abiff. That was another thing. But I think transparency, bringing everything to light.
Looking back, what should you have done differently?
Things are easy to look back on with hindsight. Oh, I should have done this. I mean, everybody does it with football games or baseball games. Oh, they should have sacked the quarterback, or if this didn't happen, or if this didn't happen. But everyone has those moments in life. I think, if I would have done this would this have happened? If I would have taken a left instead of a right, would I have gotten in that car accident? If I did this, if I did that. But I think looking back doesn't really help anyone. I think as long as you look forward, that's the most important thing. But also, I think the awareness of ritual that I put forth, the awareness of the business aspect of Royal Arch Masonry, which is just a small portion, but things like, paying your per capita on time, making sure your election results get put in, updating the database with your officers, just those little small parts of the business of Royal Arch Masonry. But I think as we move forward, hopefully I wish I could have more nurtured a desire and a willingness to help. I wish I would have made the chapters more available to the closer chapters around that so they could put on degrees. They're like, well, we don't have the guys. I'm like, well, did you ask? And of course I get the same answer. Who should I ask? I'm like, well, ask me. Just this year I've gone to Mayo up there just by Alpena. I've been to Midland, Jackson, Detroit, Northville. I've been to a lot of places and helped put on degrees. But if they could have asked their neighboring chapters, you can't swing a dead cat in Michigan without hitting at least, 3 or 4 chapters within an hour. So they could have asked any one of those. I wish I would have implemented that more to be able to ask. I put that out a number of times, but sometimes it's difficult getting through to people.
Okay, so on that note of the community between the chapters, what chapter surprised you over the year or through the entire time in the Grand Line? That chapter, I had it in my mind that it was going to be this kind of chapter, and I walked in and they were
that
great googly eyes.
Yep, that was well, I had mentioned before that some chapters are better at ritual than others, and that's an easy question. I never even thought about that. Oakland number 5. Well, I don't want to say that they were bad before, but they needed a lot of help about 2 years ago. And I visited their chapter, and oh my gosh, they had all 13 officers there present and doing their jobs, as well as a number of people on the sidelines, and everybody knew their ritual. Word for word, word perfect. The high priest up there was like, okay, companion secretary, we got this and this and this. Okay, bang, gavel. Companion treasurer, this and this and this, bang, gavel. It was committees. The grand high priest ruled that chapter. The high priest ruled that chapter, and it was great. It ran like clockwork. Everything was done, opening, closing, the whole 9 yards. It was absolutely, nothing can be perfect, but it was as close to a perfectly run chapter meeting as it could be. That was the best surprise ever, was to watch Oakland number 5 do that. And I think Dave Montgomery, the Grand King, had a lot to do with that. But that's just a supposition based on how often he visited there.
And so what's your advice to the next high priest to address this?
Well, first of all, I would tell him all the things that I found out when I was Grand High Priest. Nobody, even the other previous Grand High Priests or recent Grand High Priest, had even mentioned about this or this or this or this or that, and I had to find out about it like after the fact. There was one chapter that hadn't paid their per capita in 3 years. You're only supposed to let it go a year, and then on suspension and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, okay, great, I got to deal with that. There was another chapter that hadn't had a legal meeting in like 4 years. And I'm like, and I find out about this, a couple months into my term. And I'm like, why wasn't this taken care of? There was a couple things in the Red Book that weren't addressed. There was a number of things. So I'm going to tell him all that stuff. Like, hey, you need to watch out for this. You need to take care of this. You need to take care of all these other things that I found out after the fact. And I'm like, well, okay, so that's what I would do. Also, I'm going to give him all the advice that I was given, and what he does with that. I mean, I got a lot of advice. Hey, try this, try this, try this, try this. Rich Hitch was another great source of information. He helped me a lot with the history. He's like, well, the reason this rule came in is because of this and this and this. And the reason it was changed was because of this and this and this. I mean, he was a great source of information about the history of why things are and why they're happening and things like that. So that was awesome. Last year we had at session, so in August, we had 14 chapters that hadn't paid their per capita. 14. And of course the per capita is due on May 25th, just so you know. And so on May 25th, well, or just a few days after that, because that was Memorial Day weekend, I called the Grand Secretary and I said, hey, I need to know who hasn't paid their per capita. And I think it was like the 28th or the 30th or something like that. So he gave me a list, and I started making phone calls. Hey, did you pay this, pay that? Oh, well, we don't have that, like one chapter had switched over secretaries at their installation, and they hadn't just gotten around to it because of the paperwork shuffle. Another chapter hadn't gotten a letter that they may or may not were supposed to get, but it was right. All the information was right there on the database. One or two chapters had issues with their prepaid members versus their regular dues paying members, and then their life members and things like that. But right now, I think we only have 10 chapters that still have to pay their per capita. So that's not bad. And then there's a couple, 3-4 chapters that, the check's in the mail, or because of this or because of that. People are busy. People have lives. People have families, things like that. But yeah, I'm just going to tell him all the things that people told me. And hopefully he can take that. For example, he's been a Royal Arch Mason in Michigan a lot longer than I have. I moved back here in 2016, so it's only been 9 years. And he's been in Michigan a lot longer than that. So hopefully he can gain from his experience as well as from other Grand High Priests. But I'm going to tell him all the things that were never told to me before I took this office.
And do you have ambitions to take other Grand Lines?
God, no. No. I do not.
You don't want to be a Knights Templar?
My year as Grand High Priest is done on August. Well, Dave Montgomery, the Grand King, will be installed as Grand High Priest on the 14th. And I think my year goes until the following Monday, or it could be over on the 14th. But after that, I have the outdoor degree that I have every year, the first Saturday after Labor Day, and that's on the 6th of September. And then after that, I'm going on a vacation. My first vacation I've had in 5 years, that I didn't have to go to this place or to that place or to another place. And so I'm going to take a vacation. And then, but yeah, there's a small amount of politics involved in any Grand Line at the state level. And so I don't do politics. I don't do drama. I don't do nonsense. And so it's difficult for me on a personal level to go through another Grand Line. I'm already on the Board of Trustees for the Michigan Masonic Charitable Foundation, and I just was appointed on the membership committee to the General Grand, Royal Arch Masons International. And so I'm gonna work with those people, but yeah, I have no ambitions at all.
What would you say to somebody who's thinking about getting into a Grand Line?
Not to put a dollar amount on it, but it is expensive. You get reimbursed $4,000 when you're the Grand High Priest. So, I mean, you turn in your receipts and then you get reimbursed up to $4,000. The rest of the time in line, you don't get a penny. So all the traveling to different places, hotels, the banquets, other sessions, all this other stuff you have to pay for. And like I said, the amount of traveling that we do, just because York-Rite is the foundation, chapter of Royal Arch Masons is the foundation for everything York-Rite. And so we travel to all the different chapters. We host this, we host that, we host a lot of different events, whereas this is anything bad on their part, but like council, nobody from council travels anywhere except their mid-year meeting in April, I think. And that's the only thing. We don't get Grand Council members come to visit our chapter or our council or anything like that. Grand Commandery, the same thing. They have once a year, they go and do a Bark River Commandery. They put on the orders up there in the Upper Peninsula. But then you see them once a year. You see the Grand Commandery officers once a year for your inspection. So you don't get Grand Commandery officers come visit your commandery for anything else besides the inspection. You don't get Grand Council members come to visit your chapter or come visit your council for anything. So that's the biggest thing, is that it's expensive, and also lead by example. That's the biggest thing for me, is to try and lead by example, and not just with one or two things, but with everything that you do, with how you look, how you dress, your ritual performance, where you go, your ability to travel, your ability to take on separate tasks. Just in a couple weeks, I'm going to Lapeer on Saturday to do a Royal Arch degree. They have a Royal Arch degree that they're putting on. And then right after that, then I'm going to Alma for the Rainbow Grand Assembly installation for the new Grand Worthy Advisor. So there's a lot of things that meet twice in one day. A month ago, I went to Detroit in the morning for York-Rite Sovereign College, and then I had to come back to Grand Rapids in the afternoon for the Order of the Red Cross. And so there's a lot of things that happen twice in one day, and you have to be available for that. And for those individuals with families or with children or anything like that, make sure it's clear with them, saying, hey, this is what I travel with. And we have 4 people running right now for the 3 open chairs in Grand Chapter. And I met with all of them. And I told them 90% of pretty much I told you, this is what you're going to need to do. This is where you're going to go. This is how you have to do this. You have to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. So make sure it's okay with your families, because this is either a 4 or 5 or 6 year commitment. Not just, hey, I'm going to do this and then you're done. So that's what I would say. That's what I would tell them.
What do you most look forward to in the future of Royal Arch?
What I look forward to next year is I just pluraled with plural membership with Grand Ledge chapter 85, and they have a lot of spirit, and they've got a lot of good guys in that chapter. For some reason, they just can't let go of those ritual books. They just can't, and so hopefully we can do some practices, or we can do some help with that. I'll do whatever the high priest says, because I'm just going to be a nobody. But hopefully that can come up. They have the ability, they've got the drive, they've got the encouragement. They just need a little bit of education, and that's all. I mean, there's that old saying, well, you can't fix stupid. Well, of course you can. It's just through education. But what you can't fix is apathy or laziness or lack of leadership. You just can't fix those. But as long as people are aware of what they need to do, they'll do it. You just got to tell them, and you got to give them the drive and say, this is what we're going to do, and set benchmarks. Jackson, number 3, I look forward to that chapter. They just got 5 more guys into that chapter, 5 younger guys, 5 that are ready to go. I haven't been a plural membership there, plus because it's like 2 hours away, but I would like to go there a couple, 3, 4 times throughout the next year and see how they're doing. But other than that, that's about it. That's about it. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We may do another one, but I'm not sure. If not, thank you all for watching. Thanks for all your likes and things like that. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your questions. And until I see you again, keep seeking further light in Masonry.